Faiza, thanks so much for joining us on the show this morning. I suppose I should really start by asking, how are you doing? It must have been a hell of a week.
Yeah, definitely not the week I was expecting to have. It's been very difficult and emotional. And yeah, I feel a bit better today, but it's been really painful and in some ways pretty humiliating.
I'm sure. Have you heard anything more from the Labour Party at all since your communication? I know you had an email, I think, from them about it, which basically set all of this process in motion. Have you heard anything more from them since then?
No,
Nothing at
no,
all.
no. I mean, there was something on the email when they said that we're dropping you as a candidate that was like, we can understand that this will be upsetting. Here's a link to mental health resources. So that was how they signed off.
But apart from that, you've had no communication, nothing from the leadership, no informal call, no nothing.
I don't matter to them.
And to be clear, just people who aren't familiar with you, you were the candidate in 2019. You did pretty well in the seat. I mean, you almost won the seat then, despite the fact that obviously Labour had a pretty bad election in 2019 overall. And you were reselected for this election when?
July 2022.
July 2022. So since then, so 2 years basically,
Yeah.
you've been campaigning, working the seat and so on, assuming that you would be the candidate because you had no reason to believe you wouldn't be.
Yeah, I had been selected for the candidate in 2018 and did the work then. So that was another 2 years of work. And then, happy to do it. I mean, I live here, it's my community. But yeah, so since 2022, again, been out door knocking. There's something people won't understand, necessarily know that when you're a candidate, what you're trying to do is just find out where all your votes are. So you kind of diligently go every week or whatever it is and knock on doors, talk to people, and you're just collecting the data over time.
I noticed, I mean, you wrote a piece in The Guardian about it, about your experience, about what's happened. And I was very struck by one line in particular where you said when you realised what was going on, one of your first reactions was to say, please don't ruin my life, basically. Please don't ensure that I'm basically unemployable. I can never get another job. Why were you worried about that?
It just seems like, sorry, it just
Maybe
seems
that's the Labour
like,
Party.
yeah, no, it won't be. It just seems like the way they were leaking it to the press, what was happening in terms of the tweets that they'd put together, that they wanted to tell a story about me that labels me as something I'm not, and that is deeply upsetting for me, given the community ties I have. And I know that for others, they've done that, and I just was scared about the mud that would be slung at me and how my name would be dragged through through the mud even. And yeah, I just was very concerned about going out and speaking and not just being quiet and standing up to this.
Do you still worry about that?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, it's happening all the time, just the insinuations. And so
You worry you won't be able to get another job potentially?
well, actually, what's been really nice is that since that interview on Wednesday night on Newsnight is that I've had a lot of support. I'm an academic at London School of Economics, and I think sometimes they like to paint the left, whatever that means, as like some mad cranks. Like I was working in New York with ambassadors to the UN. I mean, some of them have emailed me and said that this is terrible. We can't believe this, and they can't believe the way that they're trying to frame me. And so, yeah, I mean, actually, it's been really comforting, and especially the support from the community as well. It's been really comforting in that they haven't been able to do that. But if I cause more of a fuss, then maybe they'll try more.
Well, you think that there could be, what else do you think they could do?
I don't know. I'm just worried about it because I've seen them drag other people's names through the mud. So yeah, I'm worried about it.
When you
Yeah.
say that you've faced racism, Islamophobia and bullying from inside the party, I mean, from whom? Who is racist inside the party then?
Well, it's the processes as well in how you make complaints. So I've had a couple of times where there's been issues of Islamophobia. And one time I never even got no follow-up, no email, nothing. And I told them that I'd done this. I told the General Secretary that I'd never got a response. And yeah. And then the second time it took 6 months for them to respond. And then they were like, we had a word with them and have decided that the case is closed. And so with this person within the Labour Party that had done what he'd done. So it's also just, being told that I'm not allowed to speak about Islamophobia in the party externally. It definitely seems like there are double standards here, because we wouldn't want anyone that experiences racism who feels that they don't, that they can't talk about that nationally. I mean, because that was the whole thing with anti-Semitism as well, Jewish people being able to talk about their experiences, like, that's right. And why can't I talk about my experiences? Why am I told that makes me an election liability and the reason to kick me off?
So you're saying that the Labour Party, presumably up to and including Keir Starmer, you're alleging that they don't care about particular forms of racism, or they care less about it.
Well, I think that was well founded. It's not just me. I think that was well founded in the Ford report. That's not, and that report has been forgotten. But that's there. It's written. He spoke to Ford. They got so many submissions for that. And so, yeah, absolutely. And you can't look at what's happened to Diane or me, and then look at some other people that have got away with so much, and not see that. But for me, yes, it's the treatment of me, but it's also what's happened since Wednesday, and the amount of people that have written to me locally or stopped me in the street is just how much people feel here that their opinions have been disregarded, the candidate that they wanted.
So when you hear, obviously you'll hear people at the very top of the Labour Party, I'm sure if they were here, and they would say the Labour Party is a fundamentally anti-racist party and that we stand for anti-racism. What would you say to that?
No, you don't. Yeah, I think, and that's been for a long time. I think you can claim those things, but then you need the evidence to back it up. And one of the key parts of that evidence is how you treat people internally within the party as well. And it's, again, I've heard so many cases of this where just people have felt like their concerns, their experiences have just been ignored. And yeah, again, you just need to look at the Ford report. People should look up the Ford report, which was written and is amazing, and was, all of the recommendations from that have never really been implemented.
You would accept, I think you have the thing that's being cited most is obviously the Twitter post which you liked, which I know you've said that you didn't realise you liked, but you liked saying that people who were mildly critical of Israel were assailed by professional organisations who inflict non-stop harassment and accuse you of anti-Semitism. It is problematic, that, isn't it?
Yeah, so one of the things I would say was it was a Jon Stewart sketch that I'd watched, which I remember watching in the middle of the night. And it was about, and in that sketch, he says, he's himself Jewish, and he says, we have to talk about Israel, and then all these people start shouting at him. And then he says, we have to talk about Hamas, and all these people start shouting at him. And I just thought it was like a really good example of like how difficult it is to talk about these things, or really well done. And there was a long tweet that came with that. And at the top, it did mention something about the Israel lobby, which is just a fact in America. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's AIPAC in America. I mean, it exists.
But there are problems with that language.
Yeah, there are problems with that language, but I think it's an American context. It's not. But I understand where I could have crossed some red lines there in terms of tropes, and so
Sure.
I immediately had coffee with the local rabbi. I was talking to him, like I was happy to have this conversation with the Labour Party.
Do you accept?
I couldn't imagine that one thing, which, by the way, Jon Stewart has tweeted in support of me, which is amazing. Because
although I suppose he's not really the litmus test for whether this is all right or not. I mean, would you accept that as a result of what happened in the Corbyn years, where anti-Semitism did become a big problem and was seen to be a big problem as well, particularly by Jewish community in Britain, that Starmer and his leadership have had to overcorrect, perhaps, that they have had to be so harsh on anything that could be perceived to be anti-Semitic because of the problem that the left of the party created?
So what I would say as well is, again, this is the framing around this, like this one tweet. They gave me 14 tweets, right? So 3 of them were me liking Green Party things. Some of them were like 2014 before I joined the party. I joined the party in 2017. So yes, of course, the Labour Party has to think about issues of racism and anti-Semitism, and of course, because of what happened before, they do need to take that seriously. I agree. Like, I agree, they need to take all forms of racism and religious prejudice seriously. But the way, again, that this is being framed of me liking one, that's not how it was presented to me. In what they gave me in the meeting, I had to talk through each tweet equally, how I think that affects Labour Party's primary purpose to win elections. So a 2014 tweet where my friend had stood to be, or my work colleague had stood to be a councillor for the Green Party, I had to explain and had to go through each one. So, I just want to be clear about what happened to me.
I get it.
Because another story briefed to the press, and that's not what happened in that meeting or what was presented to me.
I understand. But you see what I mean about the correction? Just address that point about the potential for overcorrection.
Yeah, I can understand how that would happen, but you still have to have clear processes. You still have to be fair. That's how it should be. And alongside that, in the same document, they asked me to answer for why I had tweeted that the Labour Party had a problem with Islamophobia because of my own experiences. So on the one hand, they're saying, you're not allowed to talk about your experiences of racism in the party. That it makes you an electoral liability. And on the other hand, they're saying, don't talk about, other people complaining about anti-Semitism is valid. So which it is valid. So where is this double? It's such an obvious double standard, and I just, for me, it's just the idea that all these years of work
is
have just been dismissed so easily. And what our community wants has been dismissed so easily.
At its simplest, what you're saying is that the Labour Party processes, and indeed the Labour Party institutionally, is corrupt.
I mean, you can look at this week at who's getting seats and look at their tweets.
But you would say that it's corrupt?
It definitely, the process by which people being selected this week certainly looks like that. So I would say that. I mean,
although the Labour Party has always done that a bit to some extent, hasn't it? I mean, the left tried to get its people in. I mean, that is the nature of factionalism, as brutal and horrendous as it can be.
True. People say to me, my husband was like, when we started doing this again, and they asked me to run again, my husband was like, why are you doing this? Politics is horrible. They're going to try and ruin your life. Please don't do this to yourself or do this to us. And I stood because my community asked me to stand again. And
do you regret standing?
No, I don't regret standing because I love speaking to people. I love campaigning. I love the idea of being in service of somewhere where I grew up. I don't regret that, but I think the way I've been treated is so harsh. And I think it says a few things about where the party is. I'm considered to be on the left of the party. This isn't the first time that they've tried to take me out. I've had a hard time. As soon as I announced that I was running again, they've done all kinds of things to me in the last few months, even though I was heavily pregnant and had a baby.
Would you, Faiza, sorry, I'm just running out of time. I just wanted to ask you, would you consider standing for another party or an independent? If the Greens wanted you, for example, would you consider?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's coming up a lot, and a lot of people it's lovely. Thank you, everyone that's been stopping me in the street and giving me support. And there was a big rally with hundreds of people on Friday night, and they're shouting for me to go independent. But I have to do things for the right reason. I really hate the idea. I need to make sure I'm doing it, in line with what I have, the needs I have of my family. And I don't want this to change me and make me like a vengeful person, because that means I would have won. So I need to think through, like,
is it a possibility though? Is it a possibility?
It's a possibility, because the person they've put in here is going down so badly. And so people are saying they've already given the seat back to Ian Duncan Smith is terrible. And also I should be able to stand up to myself and for my community. This is not right.
Well, you've got till Tuesday to decide, I think, isn't it? Faiza Shaheen, grateful for your time. Possibly standing as an independent in Chingford and Wood Green. We'll await her decision. Hopefully she'll tell us first on LBC.